The metallic corridors of Starbase Elysium hummed with the familiar blend of human chatter and alien communications that Ethan Wright had grown accustomed to during his 18 months as the station's xenobotanist. Yet today, the ambient noise faded to a dull murmur as he spotted her across the central atrium, Commander Zelara of the Australian Guard. Unlike the other Australians aboard the station, whose violet skin ranged from lavender to deep plum, Zelara's complexion shimmered with an almost electric intensity, accentuated by the intricate silver markings that traced her high cheekbones and wrapped around her muscular arms. Her silver eyes, renowned for their piercing gaze that seemed to assess both physical and spiritual weaknesses, scanned the room methodically until they locked with Ethan's. He quickly glanced away, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. It wasn't the first time he'd been caught starring. "You're doing it again," whispered Dr. Malik, Ethan's lab partner, nudging him with a bony elbow. "You know Australians can sense elevated heart rates from 20 meters away, right? She definitely knows you're watching her." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his unruly brown hair. "I can't help it. Have you ever seen anyone move like she does? It's like gravity affects her differently." "That's because it does, genius. Their home world has 1.3 times our gravity. Everything about her is literally built different." Malik rolled his eyes. "Including their concept of relationships. Just last week, Security Officer Brennan tried to compliment an Australian on their ceremonial armor, and they challenged him to ritual combat." Ethan watched as Zelara gracefully navigated through the crowded atrium, her 7-foot frame commanding respect without a word. The flexible armor she wore as casually as humans wore t-shirts gleamed under the station's lights, decorated with symbols denoting her numerous battle victories. "You've got more chance of successfully grafting Earth roses onto Plutonian ice crystals than getting a date with Commander Zelara," Malik continued, tapping through data on his tablet. "Besides, have you forgotten what happened to that engineer from Deck 12? The rumor is he asked out an Australian lieutenant and ended up participating in some kind of blood ritual." "That's just station gossip," Ethan murmured, though uncertainty colored his voice. The research station hosted over 40 alien species, and the Australians remained among the most mysterious. Fierce warriors with advanced technology, they had only joined the Interstellar Alliance 3 years ago after centuries of isolation. Their culture remained largely enigmatic, their customs protected with the same ferocity they brought to battle. Something about Zelara, however, called to Ethan in ways he couldn't rationalize. Perhaps it was the way he occasionally caught her studying the station's botanical garden with unexpected tenderness, or how she had once corrected the station AI's translation of an ancient text Ethan had been researching. "I'm going to talk to her," Ethan announced suddenly, standing up. Malik choked on his synthetic coffee. "Are you insane? What would you even say?" But Ethan was already moving, his heart hammering against his ribs. The logical part of his brain, the part that had earned him 2 doctorates by age 30, screamed that this was madness. Interspecies dating was rare enough between compatible life forms, let alone with an Australian warrior who could probably snap him in half without breaking stride. Yet he continued forward, drawn by something beyond reason as Zelara examined a holographic display of the station's defensive systems. She sensed his approach before he spoke, her posture shifting slightly, head tilting with what might have been curiosity. "Commander Zelara," Ethan began, his voice steadier than expected. "I'm Dr. Ethan Wright from the Xenobotany Division. I was wondering if you might be interested in having dinner sometime. With me, that is." Silence fell between them, stretching until it seemed to bend time itself. Zelara's silver eyes narrowed, studying him with an intensity that made Ethan feel utterly transparent. Then, to his astonishment, she tilted her head in what appeared to be consideration rather than outright dismissal. "You wish to engage in a sharing of sustenance?" she asked, her voice melodious yet precise, with an undertone that vibrated in his chest. "Yes," Ethan replied, suddenly aware of the attention they were attracting from nearby station personnel. "A date. I'd like to take you on a date." Zelara's expression shifted subtly. For a terrifying moment, Ethan thought she might laugh at his presumption, or worse, interpret it as some kind of challenge. Instead, she straightened to her full height and responded with unexpected formality. "I accept your proposal, Ethan Wright. However, this occasion must follow the traditions of my people." Her silver eyes gleamed with something unreadable. I shall make the necessary arrangements. Be prepared at the 8th cycle tomorrow. Before Ethan could respond, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing in stunned silence as Malik approached with wide, disbelieving eyes. Did she just accept? Malik whispered, face pale. What have you done? Ethan spent the next 24 hours cycling between euphoria and panic. His quarters, usually meticulously organized with botanical specimens and research notes, now resembled the aftermath of a small tornado as discarded clothing and grooming products littered every surface. You really don't understand what you've gotten yourself into, insisted Kira Jackson, the station's cultural liaison officer. Ethan had reluctantly sought her advice after realizing his knowledge of Australian customs consisted of fragmented rumors and observation. Australians don't have casual anything, especially not relationships. It's just dinner, Ethan protested weakly, though doubt gnawed at him. What's the worst that could happen? Kira's expression turned grave. In the 3 years since the Australians joined the Alliance, there have been exactly 0 documented cases of them engaging in romantic relations with other species. 0, Ethan. There's a reason for that. Before she could elaborate, Ethan's communication device chimed. A message from Commander Zellara contained only coordinates and a cryptic instruction. Bring nothing but yourself, all else will be provided. These coordinates? Kira's eyes widened as she checked them against the station's schematics. That's the Australian diplomatic quarter. No human has ever been invited inside. The realization that he would be the first human to enter the mysterious section of the station should have thrilled Ethan. Instead, it intensified the knot of anxiety in his stomach. What had seemed like an impulsive act of courage now felt like reckless naivety. When the 8th cycle arrived, Ethan found himself standing before an ornate doorway embedded with glowing, crystalline structures that pulsed in patterns reminiscent of constellations. Before he could announce his presence, the door slid open silently, revealing a dimly lit corridor. You have arrived precisely on time, came Zelara's voice from within. This speaks well of your respect for our customs. As Ethan stepped inside, the air changed, warmer, denser, with hints of unfamiliar spices and something metallic. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that defied the apparent dimensions of the station's Australian section. Somehow, the room felt immense, with a domed ceiling that simulated a night sky completely foreign to Earth, stars arranged in unfamiliar constellations casting a silvery glow over everything. Zellara stood in the center, and Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Gone was the utilitarian armor. Instead, she wore flowing garments of material that shifted colors like liquid moonlight, revealing and concealing the intricate markings on her violet skin. Her silver eyes seemed to glow in the starlight. You appear surprised, she noted, a hint of amusement in her voice. I wasn't expecting all this, Ethan admitted, gesturing at the elaborate setting. Low tables surrounded by cushions formed a circle around what appeared to be a small ceremonial fire, crystal vessels containing liquids of various colors arranged precisely. This is a modest arrangement for a first joining, Zellara replied, guiding him toward the circle. Had we been on Australia, the entire clan would witness our commencement. Ethan nearly tripped over his own feet. First joining. Zelara's expression shifted subtly, the Australian equivalent of raised eyebrows. Is this not why you proposed our union, to begin the bonding process? The full implications of his dinner invitation crashed over Ethan like a tidal wave. In his head, Kira's warning echoed mockingly. Where I come from, he began carefully, asking someone to dinner is usually just getting to know each other. A first step, but not necessarily a commitment to anything. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Zelara's face. Among the Australian people, to propose sharing sustenance is to initiate the 7 stages of lifelong bonding. It is not offered or accepted lightly. Ethan swallowed hard. And you accepted because? Because I found your proposal intriguing, she replied, her voice softening. Australians value courage. To approach one of our warriors as you did requires either great bravery or profound foolishness. I wish to determine which. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth, transforming her austere features. Perhaps both qualities are present in you, Ethan Wright. Before he could formulate a response, she gestured for him to sit. Now we find ourselves at the precipice of something unprecedented. No human has begun the bonding rituals with an Australian. I didn't mean to mislead you, Ethan said quickly. In human culture. I am aware of human dating customs, Zalera interrupted, surprising him. Our cultural archives are extensive. What is interesting is not your misunderstanding, but that I chose to accept despite knowing this difference. She knelt gracefully across from him, the ceremonial fire casting flickering shadows across her features. The question now is whether you wish to proceed with the first joining, understanding its significance to my people, or if you wish to withdraw your proposal. Ethan hesitated, logic warring with the inexplicable pull he felt toward her. What exactly does this first joining entail? Zalara's silver eyes gleamed. It is a ritual of sharing, memories, truths, and essence through sacred food and drink. It creates no permanent bond, merely opens the pathway to potential compatibility. And after that, then we would determine if further joinings are desired by both parties. Ethan took a deep breath, knowing he stood at a crossroads. The scientist in him demanded caution, yet something deeper urged him forward into this beautiful unknown. I'd like to proceed, he said finally, if you'll teach me how. Zalara's expression transformed with a radiant intensity that made his heart stutter. Then let us begin, Ethan Wright. Tonight our essences meet for the first time. She reached for a crystal vessel filled with luminescent blue liquid, and Ethan realized his simple dinner invitation had just changed the course of his life forever. The luminescent blue liquid in the crystal vessel caught the starlight as Zalara raised it between them. Close up, Ethan could see that the fluid wasn't merely blue, but contained swirling patterns that shifted and changed like living constellations. The essence of truth, Zalara explained, her melodious voice taking on a ceremonial tone. Derived from the sacred luminaria blooms that grow only in the valleys of our ancestral lands, it heightens perception and lowers barriers between minds. Ethan's scientific curiosity briefly overshadowed his nervousness. Is it psychoactive? A smile played at the corners of Zalara's mouth. In a manner your sciences might not fully comprehend, it does not alter consciousness but rather reveals what already exists beneath the surface. She took a small sip before offering the vessel to him. Do not fear, it has been adapted to human physiology. Pushing aside his hesitation, Ethan accepted the chalice and took a careful sip. The liquid tasted surprisingly pleasant, like honey and starlight, if such a thing were possible. Warmth spread through his body, followed by a tingling sensation that traveled from his fingers to his core. Now we begin the trial of truth, Zalara said, her silver eyes seeming to expand in his vision. 3 truths must be exchanged, each more revealing than the last. The room's starlight dimmed around them until it seemed only the 2 of them existed in a bubble of soft illumination. Ethan felt strangely calm despite the surreal situation. I shall offer the first truth, Zalara began. I have watched you for 73 cycles before you approached me. Ethan blinked in surprise. You've been observing me, why? Your work with the adaptation of Terran flora to alien environments showed unusual insight. You approached the plants not as subjects to bend to your will, but as partners in a dance of mutual transformation. Her violet features softened. It is rare to find such wisdom in a species so young. Heat rose to Ethan's cheeks, both from the compliment and the realization that his spontaneous approach had been noticed long before he gathered his courage. My turn, he asked, receiving her nod. Truth 1. I first became interested in you when I saw you correct the translation of the Centaurian text I was studying. The station AI had missed cultural nuances that you understood perfectly. Zalara's head tilted in acknowledgement. A minor correction. Not to me, Ethan replied. It showed me you were more than a warrior. Something shifted in the air between them as Zalara reached for a second vessel. This one containing a silvery substance that moved like quicksilver but glowed from within. The essence of memory, she explained. My second truth comes with this. I am not merely a commander of the Australian Guard. I am Zalara Kavosh T. Laren, crown heir to the 7th dynasty of the Australian Dominion. The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. Your royalty, actual royalty. I am next in line to lead my people, she confirmed, taking a sip of the silver liquid before passing it to him. Which makes my acceptance of your proposal all the more significant. There are 12 arranged political matches waiting for my consideration back home. Ethan nearly dropped the vessel. Then why accept a date with me, a human who didn't even understand what he was asking? Zalara's silver eyes held his with unexpected vulnerability. Perhaps that was precisely why. You saw me as Zalara, not as a political asset or royal bloodline. Do you understand what freedom that offers? As Ethan sipped the silver liquid, a strange sensation washed over him, memories becoming sharper, more vivid. He could see Zalara in formal regalia, surrounded by advisors arguing about alliances and strategic marriages. He felt her suffocation, her longing for something genuine. Without planning it, his second truth emerged. I've never felt like I belonged anywhere completely. Too focused on my work for most humans, too human to fully connect with the alien species I study. When I saw you studying plants with that look of wonder, the same look I have, I thought maybe we were both outsiders in our own ways. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something beyond the effects of the ritual substances. Zalara's violet skin gleamed in the dim light as she reached for a final vessel, this one containing a pulsing crimson fluid. The essence of desire, she said, her voice lower than before. It reveals what truly calls to our hearts. This time when their fingers brushed during the exchange, Ethan felt an electric current race through him. The touch lingered, her skin surprisingly warm against his. After they both drank, Zalara rose in one fluid motion and extended her hand. The final truth must be exchanged in the trial of physical harmony. Ethan allowed himself to be led to an adjoining chamber where luminescent patterns covered the floor in intricate designs. Soft music began from an unseen source, notes unlike any Ethan had heard before, both harmonic and slightly discordant in a way that resonated in his bones. Among my people, compatibility is expressed through movement, Zalara explained, stepping into the center of the patterns. The body reveals what words cannot. As she began to move, Ethan stood transfixed. Her dance was both powerful and delicate, movements flowing like water yet precise as a predator's strike. The silver markings on her violet skin began to glow faintly, tracing patterns that matched those on the floor. "Join me," she invited, extending her hand once more. Despite having no knowledge of Australian dance, Ethan stepped forward. To his surprise, his body seemed to know what to do, responding to her movements as if they had rehearsed for years. The essence of desire had awakened something primal and intuitive within him. As they moved together, the distance between them gradually decreased until they were breathtakingly close, her height making him tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. The scent of her skin, like ozone and exotic spices, filled his senses. "My final truth," Zalara whispered, her face inches from his, "is that I have never felt such potential for connection with anyone of any species. It terrifies and exhilarates me equally." Ethan's heart pounded as his own final truth emerged. "I came to this station hoping to discover new botanical species, but I think I was really searching for something that made me feel alive. Tonight is the first time I've truly felt that." Something shimmered in the air around them as the patterns on the floor glowed brighter. Zalara's hands found his waist, strong yet gentle as she drew him closer still. "The first joining is complete," she murmured, "but I find myself reluctant to end our time together." Ethan's response was to close the final distance between them, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that sent shockwaves through his entire body. Her skin against his felt like touching a live wire, dangerous and addictive. When they finally separated, both breathing heavily, Zalara's silver eyes were dark with emotion. "You should know," she said, her voice husky, "that the second joining is considerably more intense, and traditionally follows within 7 cycles of the first." Ethan looked up at the beautiful, powerful alien who had turned his world upside down in a single night. "I think I'm counting on it." Word traveled quickly through Starbase Elysium. By the time Ethan returned to his quarters, mind still reeling from the night's revelations, 4 urgent messages awaited him. 2 from Dr. Malik, 1 from Kira Jackson, and most alarmingly, 1 from Admiral Hayes, the station's commanding officer. "You've become quite the celebrity overnight," Malik said when Ethan finally answered his call. His colleague's face appeared haggard, as though he hadn't slept. "Please tell me you didn't actually complete an Australian first joining ritual with the heir to their empire." Ethan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I didn't know she was royalty when I asked her out. That's what you're concerned about. Malik's voice rose an octave. Not the fact that you've essentially entered into the first stage of an Australian marriage contract. The entire xenoanthropology department is in chaos trying to understand the implications. Before Ethan could respond, another call interrupted, Kira Jackson looking equally distressed. The Australian Diplomatic Corps has formally notified Alliance Command of your status as Commander Zelara's potential bondmate, she said without preamble. Do you have any idea what you've set in motion? The political ramifications alone. I need some time to process this myself, Ethan cut in, feeling overwhelmed. The lingering effects of the essences still coursed through his system, making everything seem simultaneously sharper and more dreamlike. Last night was intense. Kira's expression softened slightly. Was it at least worth it? Images of Zelara's silver eyes, the feel of her skin against his during their dance, the electric shock of their kiss, all flashed through Ethan's mind. Yes, he admitted quietly. It was worth it. Then you should know what comes next, Kira said, her tone turning serious again. The second joining isn't just dinner and dancing. According to what little we know, it involves a biochemical bond, something permanent, Ethan. The word permanent hung in the air between them. How permanent, he finally asked. The Australian biochemistry experts describe it as a shared resonance at the cellular level. In simpler terms, your biochemistry would be permanently altered to remain compatible with hers. Kira hesitated. It's never been attempted with a human before. The medical team isn't even sure if it's possible without complications. Admiral Hayes's message was more direct, a summons to his office effective immediately. By the time Ethan arrived at the administrative level, he found not only Hayes waiting but also a panel of Alliance officials on holographic display, representatives from Earth, Mars Colony, and 3 other human settlements. Dr. Wright, Hayes began formally, you've created quite the diplomatic situation. I just asked her to dinner, Ethan said weakly, though he knew by now how insufficient that explanation was. You've initiated bonding rituals with the heir to the most militarily powerful new member of our alliance, corrected a stern-looking woman representing Earth's government. A species that, I might add, we're still working to fully understand. What you do next affects more than just your personal life, added another official. The Australians view these bonding stages as sacred. Withdrawing now could be perceived as a grave insult. Ethan felt a surge of indignation. So I'm supposed to commit to a permanent bond with someone I barely know because of interstellar politics. No one is suggesting that, Hayes said, though his tone lacked conviction. But tread carefully. Commander Zelara has already dispatched a formal communication to her homeworld. Their royal fleet has adjusted course to include Elysium in their next diplomatic tour, apparently to assess you. The implications weren't lost on Ethan. An Australian royal fleet, diverted to evaluate a potential match for their future leader. How long do I have before the second joining would be expected, he asked. 6 days, Hayes replied. Traditionally, the 7 cycles Commander Zelara mentioned. After the meeting, Ethan wandered to the botanical gardens where he'd first noticed Zelara studying the alien flowers months ago. The artificial sunlight bathed the exotic plants in a warm glow, but brought him little peace. Your thoughts are troubled. He turned to find Zelara standing behind him, dressed once again in her formal armor, but with subtle differences, more elaborate markings that he now recognized as royal insignia. You didn't tell me who you really were, he said, unable to keep the accusation from his voice. Would you have approached me if you'd known? She countered, moving to stand beside him. Despite her imposing height and status, there was uncertainty in her silver eyes. Few do, knowing my position. I've been told that the second joining creates some kind of permanent biochemical bond, Ethan said. Is that true? Zelara nodded solemnly. The essence of unity alters cellular structures, creating resonance between bondmates. It allows for empathic connections across vast distances and lengthens the lifespan of the non-Australian partner. And if it doesn't work with human physiology? There is risk, she admitted. But our medical scientists have been studying human biology since we joined the Alliance. They believe compatibility is possible. Ethan took a deep breath. Your royal fleet is coming to evaluate me. Yes, it is tradition when the crown heir selects a bondmate. Her voice softened. My mother, the queen, wishes to meet the human who captured my interest. The enormity of it all crashed over Ethan. What had begun as an impulsive invitation had escalated into a potential interspecies royal alliance with implications for the entire human race. This is moving so fast, he said, rubbing his temples. On Earth, people date for months or years before even considering marriage, and even then it's not physically permanent. Zalera was quiet for a long moment, studying a delicate blue flower beside them. Do you regret the first joining, Ethan Wright? The question cut to the heart of his confusion. Despite the complications, despite the politics and the pressure, the memory of their connection during the ritual still sent electricity through his veins. No, he answered honestly, I don't regret it. Nor do I, she said simply. But I will not force the second joining upon you. Despite what your officials may fear, rejection at this stage would bring no diplomatic crisis. Disappointment, perhaps, but I would ensure no repercussions for your people. Relief washed through him, followed immediately by an unexpected pang at the thought of walking away. He looked at the regal alien warrior beside him, powerful, mysterious, yet vulnerably honest in a way that resonated deeply within him. I'm not saying no, he clarified. I just need time to understand what I'd be committing to, what it would mean for my life, my work, everything. Zalera's expression softened. Then I shall grant you that time. The second joining must be entered willingly or not at all. She reached out hesitantly, her long fingers brushing his cheek with surprising tenderness. But know this, Ethan Wright, what began as curiosity has become something I had not anticipated, something I am reluctant to surrender. As she turned to leave, Ethan caught her hand, a bold move that once would have terrified him. Will you show me what life as your bondmate would entail, not just the ritual, but the reality? For the first time, he saw Zalera smile fully, a radiant expression that transformed her fierce features into something breathtaking. I would be honored, she replied, gently squeezing his hand. We have 6 days before the choice must be made. Let us use them wisely. As they walked together through the garden, Ethan realized he stood at the precipice of two vastly different futures. One safe and familiar, one utterly alien yet irresistibly compelling. The question remained, was he brave enough to leap? The Australian Royal Fleet arrived with a display of precision that left Starbase Elysium's personnel in awe. 7 crystalline vessels materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls catching the light of the nearby star and fracturing it into prismatic patterns across the station's observation decks. Ethan stood beside Admiral Hayes as the royal delegation disembarked. The past 6 days had been a whirlwind of discovery and decision. True to her word, Zalera had shown him glimpses of what their future might hold, from virtual tour of her ancestral estates on Australia to frank discussions about the expectations placed upon royal consorts. You've made your decision, Hayes asked quietly, his formal uniform pristine for the historic occasion. Ethan nodded, adjusting the ceremonial garment Zalera had provided, a blend of Australian design modified for human comfort, deep blue with silver accents that matched her markings. I have. The Admiral sighed. For what it's worth, the xenobiology team believes the bonding process should be successful. Your genetic profile shows unusual compatibility with Australian biochemistry. Of course it does, Ethan said with a wry smile. The universe has a strange sense of humor. The delegation approached, led by a regal Australian whose resemblance to Zalera was unmistakable despite her more elaborate markings and taller stature. Queen Thalaxis moved with lethal grace, her silver eyes sweeping the reception area before settling on Ethan with unnerving intensity. So, she said, her voice carrying the same melodious quality as her daughter's but deeper, more resonant. You are the human who would join with the blood of Australia's royal line. Ethan bowed as Zalera had taught him. I am honored by your presence, your majesty. The queen circled him slowly, assessing. My daughter speaks highly of your intellect and spirit. She claims you possess a unique perspective valuable to our people's future. Her expression remained unreadable. Yet you hesitated to proceed with the second joining. I wanted to understand what I was committing to, Ethan replied honestly. On my world, relationships evolve gradually. And now, do you understand what binding yourself to my daughter entails? Ethan met her gaze steadily. I understand it is permanent, that it will change me physically and connect us in ways my science cannot fully explain, that it comes with responsibilities to your people I never anticipated. He took a breath. And I understand that in 6 days, I've come to care for Zelara more deeply than I thought possible. Something shifted in the Queen's expression, not quite approval, but perhaps respect. The second joining awaits. My daughter prepares in the ritual chamber. The walk to the Australian quarter felt like the longest of Ethan's life. His mind replayed the events that had led him here, from that impulsive invitation to the intense discussions with Zelara about their potential future together. She had been unflinchingly honest about the challenges they would face, the political opposition from traditional factions on her world, the biological adjustments his body would undergo, the years he would spend learning her culture while teaching her his. When he entered the ritual chamber, it had been transformed. Where before there had been intimate starlight, now powerful crystalline structures illuminated the space. A circle of Australian elders stood witness, their ceremonial armor glinting in the light. And at the center stood Zelara. She wore ceremonial garb that accentuated her warrior's physique while conveying her royal status, flowing silver material over fitted violet armor, her skin's markings enhanced with what appeared to be luminescent ink. But it was her expression that caught Ethan's breath, a vulnerability he'd glimpsed only in their most private moments. "You came," she said simply, though he heard the question beneath. "Did you doubt I would?" he asked, stepping into the circle. "Doubt is logical when facing the unknown," she replied, but a smile played at her lips. "Humans are notoriously unpredictable." An elder stepped forward, carrying a crystalline vessel larger than those used in the first joining. Within it, a liquid shimmered with colors Ethan couldn't name, as if it existed partially in a spectrum humans couldn't perceive. "The essence of unity," Zelara explained, her voice taking on the ceremonial tone he now recognized. "Once shared, our life forces become intertwined across time and space. The change is irreversible." The weight of forever hung between them. Ethan thought of everything he was leaving behind, the simplicity of human relationships, the biological destiny he'd been born to. Yet those concerns felt distant compared to the certainty that had grown in him during these days with Zelara. "Before we proceed," Zelara said formally, but with an undercurrent of emotion, "there is something you must know. The Unity Bond grants certain abilities between mates, including limited telepathic connection. There will be no secrets between us." "I'm an open book," Ethan said, though his heart raced at the intimacy this implied. "And one final thing," she continued. "While the bond extends human lifespan significantly, it cannot grant immortality. If we complete this joining, you will live perhaps 300 years, far longer than any human, but only half an Australian lifetime. I will eventually face centuries without you." Ethan hadn't expected this, that she was making the greater sacrifice in the long view. "And you're willing to accept that?" "I am," she said with quiet conviction. "Some connections are worth the inevitable pain of their ending." The elder offered the vessel first to Zelara, who took a measured sip before passing it to Ethan. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and even that brief contact sent electricity through him. The liquid was unlike anything he'd experienced, simultaneously burning and freezing, sweet and bitter. It seemed to flow not down his throat, but directly into his bloodstream, spreading throughout his body in pulses of energy that made his vision blur momentarily. When it cleared, Zelara stood before him, but he saw her differently. Layers of light seemed to emanate from her form, and he could sense, not quite hear but feel, the rhythm of her thoughts like distant music. "Now we complete the bond," she said, extending her hands. As their palms met, the sensation intensified. A connection opened between them, not complete telepathy, but an awareness of each other's emotional states, surface thoughts, physical sensations. It was overwhelming yet strangely natural, as if a sense he'd always possessed had suddenly been activated. "I can feel you," he whispered in wonder, "not just physically, but—" "Our essences align," she finished, her silver eyes wide with what he now recognized as joy through their new connection. "The bond is forming successfully." Around them, the elders began a low, harmonic chant that seemed to resonate with the energy flowing between them. The crystalline structures in the room pulsed in rhythm, creating an effect that was both sacred and slightly otherworldly. Through their growing bond, Ethan sensed Zelara's relief and happiness, but also flickers of her memories. Childhood on a world with violet skis, years of warrior training, the weight of royal expectations, and beneath it all, a loneliness he recognized as twin to his own. In turn, he felt her gently exploring his consciousness, his childhood fascination with plants, years of academic dedication, the isolation of being always slightly misaligned with those around him, and finally, the moment he first saw her and felt an inexplicable sense of recognition. As the ritual reached its climax, Ethan felt a fundamental shift within his cellular structure, a realignment that should have been painful but instead felt like coming home. His awareness of Zelara deepened, creating a foundation of connection he knew would remain even when they were physically apart. "The second joining is complete," announced the elder as the chanting ceased. "You are now bonded in body and spirit." Zelara's hands tightened around his. Through their new bond, he felt her fierce joy mingled with protectiveness. "How do you feel?" she asked softly. Ethan took a moment to assess. His senses seemed sharper, his awareness expanded. Most significantly, he felt Zelara's presence like a warm light at the edge of his consciousness, separate but connected. "Like I've found something I didn't know I was missing," he answered truthfully. Later, after the formal celebrations and diplomatic exchanges, they stood alone on a private observation deck, watching the stars. Ethan's body still tingled with the changes wrought by the essence of unity, but the discomfort was fading, replaced by a new equilibrium. "Your mother seems to be coming around," he noted, recalling the Queen's formal acknowledgement of their bond. Zelara's amusement flowed through their connection. "She is pragmatic. The alliance possibilities alone make you politically valuable." "So romantic," Ethan teased, drawing her closer. "She will learn, as I have, that there is more to you than political advantage." Zelara's fingers traced the now faint markings that had appeared on his skin during the bonding, subtle echoes of her own silver patterns. "The coming years will not be simple. We will face opposition, misunderstanding, cultural complications." "All relationships do," Ethan replied. "Ours just comes with interstellar politics and biochemical bonds." Through their connection, he felt her momentary worry about the future, followed by a surge of determination that was quintessentially Zelara. "We will forge a new path," she said, "neither fully human nor fully Australian." Ethan gazed up at the fierce, beautiful alien who was now irrevocably part of him. What had begun as a moment of impulsive courage had led to a future he could never have imagined. The universe had suddenly become both vastly larger and incredibly intimate. "I asked you on a date," he said with wonder, "and ended up bonded to an alien warrior queen." Zelara's laughter, rare and precious, rang through both the air and their connection. "And I accepted a simple invitation," she countered, "only to find myself bound to a stubborn human scientist." As the starlight played across her violet skin, Ethan felt the depth of their new bond resonating between them. Complex, challenging, and more authentic than anything he'd known before. "Worth it?" he asked, though through their connection he already sensed her answer. Zelara's silver eyes met his, filled with the promise of an extraordinary future together. "Every star in the cosmos,"